in harvest time. I am introducing here the wise man from the east. It's him. Dear young friends, it's summer time. Because you have more time to relax, I would like to say a few heartfelt words to you. The Syriac hidden text of the Bible, found in the Vatican a year ago in a parchment skin, reveals a scene from the Gospel of St. Matthew. The disciples were walking through the fields and rubbing the ears of corn with their hands. How to read the text hidden under the Greek text in the third layer of parchment, which evokes the hot harvest time in people's lives? Is there something missing from the good news of Jesus? In today's gospel, Jesus sends the disciples 2 by 2 to the towns of Galilee to announce the kingdom of God to everyone. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. We must demand of ourselves to rise to the task at hand, which is great because it is about man's salvation. The latter wants to be a sort of minimalist in life. To settle down, feed my wife and family, and be remembered by my friends. That's all. At this point, I would like to mention Machu Picchu from South America, which was built around 1450 AD on a mountain ridge at an altitude of approximately 2,420 meters above sea level, using simple tools. About 200 buildings survived in the ruins. All of them lost their wooden thatched roofs over the centuries, but the decay stopped at the perfectly cut granite stones. They remain immaculate and demonstrate the incredible skill of the Inca masons. The technique of installing stones without mortar is known as a ash. The Incas refrained from using mortar because loose fastenings were more resistant to earthquakes, and the entire Urubamba Valley was exposed to them. The Incas did not know steel and other hard metals. They cut stones using bronze tools and hardened stones from nearby quarries. Judging by the tool marks left on the stones, the Inca most likely formed the stones, not cut them. If we look closely, we can find a quarry right in Machu Picchu. The Inca citadel was apparently never completed. Heavy stones, some weighing over 50 tons, were hewn directly from the rock. They did not need to be transported long distances. Given the elevation and isolated location of Machu Picchu, this probably wouldn't have been possible anyway. Smaller stones were transported to various construction sites by lames, etc., while larger ones were pulled using ropes and levers. The Incas never invented the wheel as we know it. Almost all the stone blocks were finished on site in accordance with the requirements of the ash technique. Smaller indentation can still be found on some of the larger stones to secure ropes or give workers a better grip. Adobe and bricks were not used in Machu Picchu. Most dwellings probably had a light finish consisting of ground stones and sand. It is not known whether the walls were later painted. We know from other places that the religious buildings were often decorated with gold panels, and sometimes ordinary houses were painted. A building technique known as the Wairen style can be found around the sacred square. These temples may have had such a gilt finish, although evidence suggests they were never completed. The Temple of the Three Windows in Machu Picchu is also a good example. All houses are rectangular in shape, the only exception being the Sun Temple. This is a pattern also known from other Inca sites and actually applies to our modern cities as well, where only a few Machu Picchu public buildings are not more or less rectangular. The walls are rather irregular and refer to the shape of the stones, not to string geometry. Sometimes you can come across niches used to place sacred objects or mummies of ancestors. All buildings are single story, although some buildings may have had an attic. Not all of them have windows, but if they do, they are most often trapezoidal. The walls are usually sloping with rounded corners and L-shaped load-bearing elements. Underneath, there is an excellent drainage system that is still in operation today. Small devices cross the entire Inca citadel and drain all the water during frequent downpours. Everything is connected by perfect steps, some quite steep, but still in good condition. If you look closely, you will notice that Machu Picchu is divided into different, easily recognizable districts. The most visible is the city wall enclosing the agricultural sector with numerous terraces. However, differences can also be seen within the actual city limits. On the left, you can see the royal complex with perfectly cut stones. Even a needle won't fit between the stones. On your right, you will see a vast residential area with not so ideally positioned houses. These interconnected houses are known as canchas and were probably home to larger families. In the royal sector, you will find larger constructions units called calanca. They usually had many doors opening onto an open square. They were used during smaller public gatherings. Machu Picchu architectural peculiarities, perhaps most notable is the fact that the Incas followed the terrain rather than following the conventional layout of other classic Inca cities. Usually palaces and temples were built on a hill. In Machu Picchu, all the buildings are in more or less the same style, creating one coherent whole. This led scientists to believe that Machu Picchu must have been a country royal estate rather than an ordinary city. For this reason, it is often called the citadel. The Incas were religious people, worshipping nature and the gods who shaped it. This is most visible in architecture. For example, the Sun Temple stands on particularly large granite rock. The Intihuatana stone is carved straight from the mountain, and the Andean temple also uses natural stone to create the impression of giant outstretched wings. Finally, it is worth noting again that Machu Picchu had city walls. This is very unusual because warfare among the Incas was not the kind of total war we know today. As in ancient Greece, battles were constant features and rarely involved the destruction of cities. Only very late cities like Ollantaytambo of the Inca civilization have such fortified structures intended to repel Spanish invaders. Dear young friends, as Christians, we are entering a new generation of heirs to the gospel of Jesus. Illuminated by His grace, we intend to go through this life wisely. But wisdom cannot be transmitted. The wisdom that a wise person tries to impart to someone else always sounds like foolishness. You can impart knowledge but not wisdom. You can find it, live it, work miracles with it, but you cannot communicate with it and learn it. When a person is searching Then it easily happens that his eyes only see what he is looking for, and he is unable to find anything, to receive anything, because he always thinks only about what he is looking for, because he has one goal, because he is obsessed with his goal. To seek means to have a goal, but searching means being free, being open, having no purpose. It's not up to me to judge another person's life. I must judge, I must choose, and I must reject only for myself alone. I have always believed and still believe that regardless of whether good or bad fate befalls us, we can always give it meaning and turn it into something valuable. I had to experience so much stupidity, so many flaws, so many mistakes, so much nausea, disappointment, and sadness to become a child again and start over. I had to experience despair. I had to descend to the greatest mental depths, to suicidal thoughts, in order to experience grace. We don't go around in circles, we go up. The path is a spiral. We have already climbed many steps. What could I tell you that would be of value, except that perhaps you are looking for too much that your search cannot find. For great thinkers, it can be important to study the world, explain it, and make light of it. But I think it is only important to love the world and not despise it, so that we do not hate each other, but so that we can look at the world, ourselves, and all beings with love, admiration, and respect. Did you also learn this secret from the river? That there is no such things as time, that the river is everywhere at once, at the source and at the mouth, at the waterfall, at the ferry, at the current, in the ocean, and in the mountains, everywhere, and that the present exists only for it, not the shadow of the past or the shadow of the future. Look into the fire, into the clouds, and as soon as the inner voices begin to speak, surrender to them. Do not first ask whether it is permissible, whether it would please your teachers, your father, or some god. If you do this, you will ruin yourself. There is no time in eternity, only a moment long enough for a joke. Use ends when egotism ends. Maturity begins when you live for others. My true self wanders elsewhere, far away, wanders on and on, invisibly, and has nothing to do with my life. For what I have always hated, detested, and cursed above all else has been discontentment, this health and comfort, this carefully cultivated middle-class optimism, that fat and affluent offsprings of mediocrity. You've never lived the life you think you want, and that's not good. Only the ideas we actually live have any value. I can think, I can wait, I can fast. The river is everywhere. Most men won't swim until they learn how to do it. Isn't that witty? Of course they won't swim. They are born for hard earth, not for water. And of course we won't think about it. They are made for living, not for thinking. Yes, and the one who thinks, what's more, the one who thinks with his activity, can go far in it, but nevertheless he exchanged solid earth for water, and one day he sings. And all the voices, all the goals, all the longings, all the sorrows, all the pleasures of multitudes, all good and evil, all together constitute the world. All this together was a stream of events, the music of life. Friends met, both of them silently listening to the water. which for them was not just water, but the voice of life, the voice of being, the voice of eternal becoming. I believe that I am not responsible for the meaning or meaninglessness of life, but I am responsible for what I do with the life I have. Someone robbed me, but gave me something of greater value. He gave it to me himself. You should never be afraid of people. Such fear can completely destroy us. You just have to get rid if you of it if you want to become a decent person. You understand that, right? We fear death. We tremble at the instability of life. We are saddened by the sight of flowers fading and leaves falling. And we know deep in our hearts that we too are transient and will soon disappear. When artists create images and thinkers look for loss and formulate thoughts, it is to save something from the great dance of death, to make something last longer than we do. You are only afraid when you are not in harmony with yourselves. People are afraid because they have never admitted to themselves. An entire society composed of people afraid of what is unknown within them. Opinions mean nothing. They can be beautiful or ugly, smart or stupid. Everyone can accept or reject them. I will no longer be instructed by the yoga, ascetic, or any other doctrine. I will learn from myself, be a disciple of myself. I will get to know myself. I will break the secret of the person I am. I looked around as if I was seeing the world for the first time. We rational beings do not live fully. We live in a barren land, even though it often feels like we are leading and ruling you. Yours is abundance of life, the fruit juice, the garden of passion, the beautiful landscape of art. Your home is the earth. Ours is the world of ideas. You are in danger of drowning in the world of the senses. We risk suffocation in a vacuum without air. You are an artist. I am a thinker. You sleep at your mother's breast. I wake up in the desert. The sun is shining for me. For you, the moon and the star. And the river is everywhere. You have to find the source in your own self. You have to possess it. Everything else was looking for a detour, a mistake. The things we see are the same things that are inside us. There is no other reality than the one that is within us. That's why so many people lead such unrealistic lives. They take external images as reality and never allow the internal world to assert itself. Not in his speech, not in his thoughts. I see his greatness only in his actions, in his life. I have always been a big dreamer. I was always more active in my dreams than in real life, and these shadows robbed me of my health and energy. You know full well, deep inside, that there is only one magic, one power, one salvation, and that is called love. We love your suffering. Don't resist it, don't run from it. Only your reluctance hurts and nothing else. Inside you there is silence and a sanctuary where you can retreat at any time and be yourself. Our goal is not to become ourselves. It is mutual recognition, learning to see the other and respect him for who he is. Most people are like a falling leaf that drifts and turns in the air, flutters and falls to the ground. But a few others are like stars that travel on one specific path. No wind reaches them. They have their own guide and path within them. There are always a few people who demand everything from life, and yet cannot come to terms with its stupidity and primitiveness. You are only afraid when you are not in harmony with yourself. What you call passion is not a spiritual force, but a friction between the soul and the outside world. Where passion predominates, it does not indicate the presence of greater desires and ambitions, but rather the misdirection of these qualities towards an isolated and false goal, which consequently creates tension and sultriness in the atmosphere. Those who direct the maximum strength of their desires towards the center, towards true being, towards perfection, seem quieter than passionate souls, because the flame of their zeal is not always visible. For example, they will not shout or wave their hands during an argument, but I assure you that still burn with a subdued fire. No permanence is yours. We are a wave that flows, adapting to whatever form it finds. My goal is this: to always be in the place where I can best serve, wherever my gifts and qualities find the best soil, to grow in the widest field of action. There is no other purpose of mine. An enlightened man had only one duty: to seek a path to himself, to achieve inner certainty, to grope for a way forward, no matter where it led. Every age, every culture, every custom and tradition has its own character, its own weakness and its strengths, its beauty and ugliness. Accept certain sufferings as a matter of course, endure certain evils patiently. Human life is reduced to true suffering, to hell, only when two eras, two cultures and religions overlap. There are moments when an entire generation is thus trapped between two ages, two ways of life, and as a result loses all the ability to understand oneself, and there are no standards, no security, no simple consent. Naturally, not everyone feels this equally strongly. Each of us must find out for himself what is allowed and what is forbidden for him. It may happen that he never breaks a single law and yet remains as control. You too, I cannot understand what pleasures and joys push people to overcrowded railway and hotels, to crowded cafes with suffocating and oppressive music, to bars and various entertainments, to wealth exhibitions. I cannot understand and share these joys, even though they are within my reach and sought by thousands of others. On the other hand, what happens to me in rare hours of joy, what bliss and life, ecstasy and rapture mean to me, the world in general seeks only in the imagination. In real life, he finds it absurd. And indeed, if the world is right, I am a writer, and what else can I tell you? Writing is good, thinking is better, smartness is good, patience is better. And all the voices, all the goals, all the longings, all the sorrows, all the pleasures, and the good and the bad, all together constitute the world. All this together was a stream of events, the music of life. The opposite of every truth is equally true. The river is everywhere at once, at the source, at the mouth, and the water fall on the ferry, at the rapids, at the sea, in the mountains, everywhere at once, and that there is only the present time for it, not the shadow of the past, not the shadow of the future. I said. I felt that the knowledge and unity of the world circulated within me like my own blood. It's good, he thought, to get a taste of everything there is to know. Even as a child, I learned that earthly pleasures and wealth are not good things. I've know it for a long time, but only now I felt it for myself. And now I know it. I know it not just because I remember hearing it, but with my eyes, my heart, and my stomach. And it's good that I know it. What is meditation? It is an escape from yourself, a short escape from the agony of the being yourself, a short numbing of the senses from the pain and meaninglessness of life. The same escape, the same short torpor, is found in the inn by the driver of a bullock cart, drinking several bowls of rice wine or fermented coconut milk. Man is never completely holy or completely sinful. You show the world as a complete, unbroken chain, an eternal chain connected by cause and effect. The world was so beautiful when it was perceived this way, without searching, so simply, in such a childish way. Beautiful were the moon, beautiful were the banks and streams, the forests and rocks, the goats and golden worms, the flowers and butterflies. How wonderful, how delightful it is to walk through the world like a child. It had always been there, and he had never seen it. He was never present. Now it was present, and it belonged to him. Through his eyes he saw light and shadows. Through his mind he was aware of the moon and stars. I want to learn from myself. I want to be my student. I want to know myself, my own secret. I call the world of phenomena an illusion. My eyes, language, and chance I called worthless phenomena. No, it's over. I woke up. I really woke up. And today I was born. I looked around as if I was seeing the world for the first time. The world was beautiful. The world was colorful. The world was strange and mysterious. There was blue, there was yellow, there was green. The sky and the river were flowing. The forest and the mountains were stiff. Everything was beautiful. Everything was mysterious and magical. And in the middle he was waking up on the path to himself. The river laughed. Yes, that's what it looked like. Everything that was not suffered to the end, and not finally completed returned, and the same pains were experienced. The world was beautiful when you looked at it like that, without any searching, so simple, so childlike. I had to experience so much stupidity, so many flaws, so many mistakes, disappointment. But of all the secrets of the river he saw only one today, and it touched his soul. He saw this water flowed constantly, and yet it was always there, always the same, and yet new every moment. Great be the one who understands this. He didn't understand or comprehend it. He only felt that a thought was stirring, a distant memory, divine voices. If a man has nothing to eat, fasting is the smartest thing he can do. The river looked at him with 1,000 eyes, with mysterious smile, like the smile of a healthy child. He walked calmly. He saw this water float and float constantly, and yet it was always there, always the same, and yet new every moment. But the world itself, what exists around us and in us, it is never one-sided. A person or action is never completely samsara or completely nirvana. A person is never completely holy or completely sinful. It really is that way because we are susceptible to being deceived as if time is something real. Time is not real. I have experienced this time and time again. And if time is not real, then the gap that seems to exist between the world and eternity, between suffering and bliss, between evil and good, is also a fraud. No, a true seeker could not accept any teachings if he sincerely wanted to find something, but the one who found could consent to any path, to any goal. Nothing separated him from all the other thousands living in eternity who breathe the divine. I think love is the most important thing in the world. For great thinkers It can be important to study the world, explain it, and make light of it. But I think it is only important to love the world and not despise it, so that we do not hate each other, but so that we can look at the world, ourselves, and all beings with love, admiration, and respect. He saw merchant trading, princes hunting, mourners mourning the dead, horse offerings themselves, doctors trying to help the sick, priests determining the best day for sowing, lovers making love, mothers feeding their children. And all this was not worse. One glance from his eye, and all it lied. Everything stank, everything of lies, everything pretended to be meaningful and joyful and beautiful, and all of it was just hidden rot. The world had a bitter taste, but now his liberated eyes remained on this side. He saw and realized what was visible. He tried to be at home in this world. He did not seek the true essence. He did not aim at the world beyond. This world was beautiful, to look at it his way, without inquiry, so simply, so childishly. He saw himself rushing the river that consisted of him, his loved ones, and all the people he had ever seen. All these waves and waters rushing, suffering towards the goals, the many goals, the waterfall, the lake, the rapids, the sea, and all the goals were achieved, and each goal was followed by a new one, and the water turned into steam and rose to the sky, turned into rain, and poured from the sky, turned into a stream, a river flowing forwards again, flowing on again. Seeking means having a goal, but searching means being free, being open, having no purpose. I experienced in body and soul that I needed sin very much. Seek. I needed lust, the lust for possessions, vanity, and I needed the most shameful despair to learn to abandon all resistance, to learn how to love the world, to stop comparing it to some world that I dreamed of. Imagine some perfection that I invented, but leave it as it is, love it, and enjoy being a part of it. And it may come to you, but you have to persevere. It is not my place to judge another person's life. Only for myself, only for I must decide, I must choose, I must refuse. In that moment, when the world around him dissolved and he stood alone like a star in the sky, a feeling of icy despair came over him, but he was himself stronger than ever. This was the last thrill of his awakening, the last labor pains. He immediately moved on and began to march quickly and impatiently, no longer home, but to his Father, never looking back. That is why I continue my journeys, not to look for other, better teachings, because I know there are none, but to leave all teachings and all teachers and achieve my goal or die on my own. Therefore, it seems to me that everything that exists is good, death and life, sin and holiness, wisdom and stupidity. Everything is necessary. Everything only needs my consent, my loving understanding. Then everything will be fine with me and nothing will be able to harm me. I have learned body and soul that I must sin, that I need desire, that I must fight for possessions and experience nausea and depths and of despair, to learn not to resist them, to learn to love the world, and no longer compare it with some desire, an imaginary world, some imaginary vision of perfection, but leave it as it is, love it, and be happy that I belong to it. Both thoughts and senses were beautiful things. The ultimate meaning lay behind both of them. Before both of them, the secret voices of the innermost truths had to be carefully perceived. Perhaps our kind cannot laugh. Childish people can. It's their secret for every true statement There is an opposite statement that is also true. This language and time constraint lead people to cling to one fixed belief that does not explain the full truth, because nature is self-sustaining cycle. Each being carries within itself the potential of its opposite. Therefore, the world should always be considered complete. Every sin already carries within itself God's forgiveness. All little children already have the old man within them. All infants already have death. All the dying have eternal life. Knowledge can be passed on, but not wisdom. You can find it, live it, get stronger with it, perform miracles, but you cannot communicate and learn with it. You know that soft is stronger than hard. Water is stronger than rocks. Love is stronger than force. Which father, which teacher was able to protect him from living for himself, from getting dirty with life, from burdening himself with guilt, from drinking a bitter drink for himself, from finding his way? Do you think, my dear, that anyone could be spared from following this path? That maybe your son will be spared because you love him, because you want to protect him from suffering, pain, and disappointment? But even if you died for him 10 times, you wouldn't be able to take on the smallest part of his destiny. That is why I continue my journeys, not to look for others, better teachings, because I know there are none, but to leave all teachings and all teachers and achieve my goal alone or die. He so deeply, as if diving into deep water. He allowed himself to sink to the bottom of the experience, to the place where the causes lay. He did this because the identification of causes, is it him seemed to him, was the very essence of thinking, and through these act sensations turn into realization and do not perish, but become beings and begin to emit like rays of light what is in them. And the voice of the river was full of longing, full of burning regret, full of insatiable desire. God bless you all.